few people have asked what kind of setup we have for the whiteboard drawings and the recipe videos that we film. So I thought I'd make a quick video to show the overhead lighting table that I've built. Before building this was the setup we used, which was a little bit more difficult. The natural lighting would change with the clouds, we could only film during the day, and the dog would come by and eat everything. I was giving away some cabinets on Craigslist, and the guy taking them was an electrician. And he just happened to have these 4-foot LED lights from a job he had just done and offered to give them to me. And it turns out that they actually work pretty well for filming. You want to make sure you find lights that don't have a flicker and also don't cause scan lines once you record them, especially when you speed things up for a time lapse. A friend of mine let me borrow this little LCD monitor, which actually really helps so you can be looking at what the camera sees while you're down working at the table. So what do you need to build this? I highly recommend picking out your lights first and then designing the structure around that, because the dimensions might be slightly different depending on where the lights are going to be mounted. I used 4 2x4s that were 8 feet long, and I cut those up. And I had 2 that were 48 inches, 2 that were 44 inches, and 4 for the legs that are 33 inches long. Also, for extra support, I used these 4x4 pieces of wood that I had lying around and cut each side at 45-degree angles to put into the corners. You could use a 2x4 instead of a 4x4 as well. As I mentioned, you'll also want at least 2 4-foot LED lights, one for each side pointing downward. Having a third can come in handy depending on your uses. And of course, if you have other filming lights, you could use those as well to help supplement. Depending on the type of LED that you're using, you'll need to wire it up. The ones that I have are meant to be installed in ceilings, so I actually just bought an extension cord, chopped it up, and wired the lights myself, which you'll see later on in the video. Now, you don't have to cut all the lumber yourself at a store. You can probably have them cut it there. Just go in with the measurements, either for free or usually a small fee. They will cut everything that you need right on the spot. Of course, you'll also need some screws or nails. I suggest 3-inch screws to make everything secure and easy to take apart. If you don't have any experience building things, try to find a friend or a family member who might be able to help you out. I highly suggest a power drill. Trying to do all this by hand would probably be way too much work. The initial version that I built actually had the lights in the front and the back rather than on each side, and this created a problem because every time you would lean over from the front, it would start creating shadows. The other thing that's really important is you want to make the left and right lights as wide as possible, because if you end up filming a reflective surface, like some whiteboards, you're going to see the light reflection on camera. So here you can see I just chopped up an extension cord. I left the little plug end so I can attach later, and that will be sticking out of the light, just to provide an extra plug in front if needed. If you end up with lights that need to be wired, I highly suggest finding a friend or family member who has some experience with wiring. As you can see here, I use these twist-on wire connectors and then also put on a layer of electrical tape just to make sure everything is secure and prevent any shorts from happening. One thing to consider when buying lights is the color temperature. These ones I'm using here are 3500 Kelvin. As long as all the lights are the same temperature, it shouldn't matter, since you can adjust the white balance on your camera to match it. I built this table that is a 4-foot by 4-foot piece of plywood on top, but you could of course just put this whole thing right on the floor, or you could just get a piece of plywood that you can set it on and then set this whole thing on your dining room table. You could also get a little creative with the design of this and put some hinges on so the legs could fold up. I could imagine all kinds of modifications to this to make it better or to make it suit different people's needs. I use a regular tripod. This one was about $150, and the legs can spread out on it really wide, which allows you to mount it on top of the 2x4 frame. To secure it, I just throw a bungee cord on every leg and wrap it around the 2x4. So nothing fancy, but it's functional and stable. I use a 70-200 lens because I really like to be able to zoom in on whatever I'm filming at the time. But you probably don't want to get too wide, otherwise it's going to start filming off the table. I'd say most of the time I'm shooting somewhere around 100. If you have any questions about how to build your own, please leave them in the comments below.